Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Welcome everyone to our open question and answer session. My apologies that the announcement went out a little bit late. That's partly my fault. I had forgotten that we needed to schedule this in the month of January. But that being said, I have quite a few questions. I think I have 29, by my counting, 29 questions, and they're all meaty. So we'll just jump right in, inshallah, and in no particular order. And of course, the questions are anonymous. Question number one: is it too late to start memorizing the Quran? And I am in my mid-40s. Could you guide me through an efficient method? First of all, no, it's not too late. And one shouldn't think about, it's kind of like how shaitan plays with us. So no, don't think about it as it's late or it's early or anything like that. This is where you are now. Allah Ta'ala put in you this desire to memorize the Quran. So inshallah, you'll memorize the Quran, and memory is like a muscle that just needs to be exercised. So my suggestion is, whenever we would ask our mashayikh this question, they advised us to memorize the Ottoman way. So what is the Ottoman way of memorizing the Quran? First of all, you need to have a Quran that has 15 lines per page. The Ottomans are the ones that printed the Quran that way, or before the print, they wrote the Quran in the manuscript form that way. And that's based on a hadith of al-Bayhaqi, that whoever memorizes the Quran 5 by 5 will never forget it. So the page is 15 lines. It begins with one verse and it ends with one verse. And the Quran that's printed in the Medina printing press, that's how it's printed. It's called Dar al-Kanar. And that's number one. Number two is, you're going to memorize the last page of each juz first. So you go to the first juz. Each juz is about 20 pages. So when you open the Mus'haf and you go to the first juz, you're not going to start in the first page. You're going to go to the last page of the first juz. And then after you memorize that page, you're going to go to the last page of the second juz. And then the last page of the third juz, all the way to 30. And then when you have those 30 pages memorized, you go back to the first juz, and then you memorize the second to last page of the first juz, the second to last page of the second juz. No one knows why, but this way works. And the Ottomans and the modern day Turks, they've produced, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say hundreds of thousands of huffaz. So this is the way that I recommend. First, having the Mus'haf. First of all, you need to have the same Quran, the same Mus'haf. So if you're going to get the Medina Quran, you need to get like a couple of those copies, because when you memorize the Quran and you keep going through it every day, there's wear and tear, and sometimes the spine of the Mus'haf gets damaged, etc. So make sure that you get 3, 4, 5 of those copies, and then try memorizing that way. And just take it easy. When you come to memorize the page, break down the page either in half, or in thirds, or in fourths, so you can have bite size, and it's just about repetition. And then all you really need to do is dedicate the time. And if you follow that method, within about 3 years, you should have the Quran memorized, inshallah. Okay, I do not understand Arabic. Is it too late for me to study Arabic, but I can read Arabic and the Quran? Will my recital be as blessed as those who understand Arabic? Again, like the question about the Quran, you're never too late to learn. Quranic Arabic is different than Arabic in general. So there are courses and resources for Quranic Arabic to give you a better understanding of the Quran and the verses. Of course, reading the Quran, understanding it, is more beneficial than reading the Quran and not understanding it. I mean, it goes without saying, but that does not diminish from the blessings of reading the Quran, even if you don't understand it, because the Quran is a shifa, it is a source of healing. So even if you read the verses of the Quran, they're still going to have spiritual impact on you, because it's real. It's not something that's made up. It's something that's real. But when it comes to learning in general, you're never too young to learn or too old to learn, and you shouldn't think about it that way. It just takes time and dedication. Is it haram for women to have undercuts or short haircuts? Does it matter if one wears hijab, as people wouldn't see the hair anyway? The Prophet ﷺ said, "Man kana indahu sha'run falyukrimuh." Whoever has hair, let them honor it. So it's the only thing that's impermissible is it's impermissible for a woman to shave her head, unless there's a medical reason, of course. So that's the only thing. But as far as making the hair short or long, it's just as long as you take care of your hair and you honor it, because this is a gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. This is irrespective of the hijab issue. Covering the hijab, a woman wearing the hijab, she's still obligated to take care of her hair. The hijab doesn't mean you don't take care of your hair. So the hijab is one thing, and honoring the hair, and that goes for men as well, honoring the hair, taking care of it is part of the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. But if a woman wants to cut her hair, I mean, she it doesn't have to be like Rapunzel. I mean, that's fine if she cuts it, but not to shave it. Okay, I never made up my fasts from my period during Ramadan because I just don't know I didn't know any better. No one told me I needed to make them up before the next Ramadan. So for 15 plus years, I've calculated I owe more than 200 fasts I need to make up. Should I figure out a plan to somehow make up the fast in my lifetime, fasting once a week, for example, or is that pointless if one is supposed to make up the fast before the next Ramadan? It seems like al-fidya and kafara don't apply in this situation unless I'm mistaken. What's the best way to tackle this? Of course, the fuqaha have different opinions about this. Don't follow the opinion that the fast has to be made up by the next Ramadan, because then you're just going to get into this rut. So we don't give that opinion. The opinion that we give is the easy opinion, which is you just have to make up the days. Don't worry about the kafara or the fidya. Just make sure that you make up the days as best as you can. And then there are many sunnah fasts throughout the year. You can fast Mondays and Thursdays. You can fast the middle days of the month, the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th of the lunar months. There's also the 15th of Sha'ban. There's the 6 days of Shawwal. There's the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. So on, and Ashura on the 10th of Muharram. So there are many sunnah days to fast that kind of like motivate you, as long as your intention is that you're making up your fard days. During those days, you'll get double the reward. So don't worry about paying or feeding. As long as you are physically able to fast, make up the fast, inshallah, put together a plan, and before you know it, you will fast. Before you know it, you'll make up those days, inshallah. Can I do sunnah fasts for the deceased? Well, you can fast on behalf of someone who has passed away, who owes fast. The only thing you can't do for the deceased is pray for prayers that they haven't prayed, because prayer is something specific for each person. Sunnah fasts, it's just under the rubric of any meritorious act. You can pray for them, read Quran for them, give charity for them, fast for them, and donate the reward to that, so on and so forth. That's all fine. Aren't we able to go Hajj for people who have passed away? Yes. Doesn't Hajj include everything, all of the acts of worship? Yes. So everything can go, with the exception of the prayer, because the prayer is something that's specifically tied to each individual. But all of the other acts of qurbah, of devotional acts, all of them go to the deceased when we do it on their behalf. We could get together, for example, and we could each person take a juz of the Quran, and we read the Quran and we finish it, and then we make dua, and then we donate the reward of that khatm of the Quran to the deceased. Why not? We could all, as a matter of fact, there are many communities that will do this all the time. Every month they will have a cycle. They'll have like a WhatsApp group or an Excel sheet, and you sign up for your juz, and then you read a juz. And every month they do this for the deceased of their community. So there's nothing wrong with that, and these are good things to do, because when we're dead, we will want people to make dua for us as well, inshallah. As for the people who are obsessed with the death, that nothing goes to the dead people, those people are the walking dead. Yani just forget about them. Yani they're walking dead, and la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And their problem is that they don't understand death. You see, that's the thing. They think that death is the end of life, but it's not the end of life. They think they're material. They don't realize it, but they're just a form of the modern world. They just see it. They think death is like you just turn off the lights and khalas, it's over. If it's over, then why do we wash the body, shroud the body, pray for the body, and bury the? Why don't we just throw the body in the dumpster or burn it if it's over? Well, because it's not over. That's why we wash the body with lukewarm water. Make sure one of the washings has, a camphor or some nice scent. The white shroud, at least 3 shrouds. Why do we do all of these things? Because the person is in another state of living They've left this world, but they're in another state of living. So we honor them by helping them transition to the next world. So if you understand that belief, then you will understand that we make dua and we can fast for them and donate, do charity for them, so on and so forth. Could you please go into a little detail on the rulings and conditions around a Muslim man marrying a Christian or Jewish woman? If the couple actively decide not to raise the children as Muslim, is the marriage still valid? Why do you guys have to ask these type of questions? So this is an issue in which I was taught one thing, but I personally slightly differ from the way I was taught. So to be faithful to the tradition, of course, in the madhab of Imam Abu Hanifa, it's much more flexible. It's permissible for a Muslim man to marry a Jewish woman or Christian woman. In the other madhab, it's not, because that ruling no longer is applicable. So in my madhab, in the Shafi'i madhab, that's technically not valid anymore. But we don't have to get into that. Let's just assume that we follow the position that say it's valid. What do you want me to say? The couple actively decides not to raise their children as Muslim. Obviously, that's not a good thing. I'm not going to say that's a good thing. And that's one of the threats, one of the problems with interfaith marriages, is that faith is what is lost and sacrificed. You can't raise a child to be religion fluid and values fluid. It doesn't work. You have to teach a child what's right from what's wrong. What makes you say that this is right and this is wrong? It's your ethical paradigm. Where does that come from? It comes from religion. At the end of the day, all people on earth that advocate principles and right and wrong, it comes from somewhere, even if they don't acknowledge it. Where does it come from? It comes from the religious traditions, whether it's the Judeo-Christian tradition, the Islamic tradition, the Hindic tradition, Buddhism, Confucianism, the whole thing in China, all of the way that they operate in public society. It oscillates between the principles of Confucian teachings and Taoism, even though it's a communist secular state. But that's where those principles come from. So it's impossible to raise a child with oscillating between sets of principles, because these principles also stem from a worldview. So what ends up happening, from what I've observed, ends up happening is that children end up taking the culture of the religion. So they participate in cultural things, holidays, foods, dresses, maybe things of speech, but that's not Islam, right? That's not religion. That's just a byproduct. Religion is that we have faith and that we act on this faith by conducting our prayers and our fast, etc., and zakah, etc., etc. So that's obviously not a good way to go about it. Is it permissible? Yes. If there's a Muslim man and there's a Jewish and Christian woman that come and ask for nikah, I conduct it, because what's the alternative? The alternative is that they live in the haram. So at least by doing the nikah, we've done something that's compatible with one of our opinions. But unfortunately, from what I have seen, I have yet to see a scenario in which this works. So I caution people seriously about this, and you need to really think twice about what is it that you want out of life for your children, so on and so forth. Okay. I usually leave the 3 witr in my Isha and say them after tahajjud a few minutes before Fajr adhan. My question is that if I miss tahajjud because I overslept, what should I say? When should I say my missed witr? I heard that missed witr can be made up between the Sunnah and Fard prayer of Fajr. Can you put some light on this matter? This is an issue of the Hanafi madhab, because the Hanafis are the ones that say that the witr prayer is obligatory. The other madhabs, they don't. So if I miss witr, then I miss witr. It's over. It's a sunnah. For me, it's a sunnah. So if I miss it, I miss it. Now, that being said, the minimum amount of witr prayer is 1 rak'ah. It doesn't have to be 3. So you could wake up and just pray 1 rak'ah, and that's your witr prayer. Or in this situation, you can take the the safer option and pray witr before you sleep. Now, what happens if you pray witr, you go to sleep, and then you wake up again and you want to pray again, right? This is a common question that we get, because people have like the fear of the curse of Salat al-Witr. They feel like they prayed Salat al-Witr, now they don't know what to do. It's fine. Pray again and then pray 2 more witr, because the Prophet ﷺ said there's no 2 witr in one night. So let's say you take the minimum with 1 rak'ah. I pray 1 rak'ah and then I go to sleep. And then I wake up half an hour before Fajr. I pray a couple more sunnah. Then I'll pray 1 rak'ah, salam, salam. So that 1 rak'ah and the first 1 rak'ah are how many? 2. So then I pray a 3rd rak'ah, just 1, salam, salam. Now I've done 3. So I've done 1 witr in one night and no problem. So it's very easy. If you're a Hanafi, you're going to make up your witr when you can, just like you would make up one of your fard prayers. So it depends. I mean, my suggestion is to follow the easier opinion to facilitate. If you find yourself not doing extra good works because you're stuck in some sort of cultural Islam that you've inherited, and there's another opinion that's valid, then know that the shaitan is playing with you. So if there's an easier opinion, we want to find ourselves, it's easy. It's just easy to practice Islam. These are easy issues, and we're motivated to do it. That's what we should do. But if you find something getting in the way, who's the one that's getting in the way? It's shaitan. Can I pray the 3 rak'ahs of witr all together with a break after the first 2? You can pray them 2 and 1, like we do in this mosque in Ramadan, or you can pray them 3 together with 2 sittings, or you can pray them 3 together with 1 sittings, or like I say, you could pray them 1 rak'ah. I hope that's clear. But I know in Ramadan we'll get the question again. Recently, we heard the story of the Holy Prophet ﷺ's chest being opened and his heart washed, and that the same incident occurred a few times in his blessed life. I have 2 questions about this. 1, were these actual physical experiences or visions? No, these were actual experiences witnessed by people, and the scar on the Prophet's chest, ﷺ, where the angels sutured his chest, was visible. It was a visible part of his physical body, ﷺ, because there were multiple times in which the Prophet ﷺ was shirtless, like in the Battle of the Ditch, when he was digging and he broke the big boulder, he was shirtless. So there were times when his chest was exposed. Number 2, if we are born without sin and the Prophet ﷺ was sinless, why did this need to happen multiple times through his blessed life? That's a very good question. So, and as I said in the Shifa class, the last class, I alluded to it, that the ulama have many different approaches in explaining this aspect in the Prophet's life. One of the reasons that this happened is to prepare the Prophet ﷺ physically for the Isra and the Ma'raj. Because the Isra and the Ma'raj is a journey through the levels of heaven that the normal human being with our normal body can't take. Just like we can't go to outer space without a suit and deep pressure this and pressure chambers and things like that. We can't be exposed to say we would die within seconds. So you can imagine that a journey beyond that realm to the angelic realms and above and beyond, that the Prophet ﷺ's body needed to be prepared for that. That's one explanation. Another explanation, as I said, is that it's not that there was sin in the Prophet's chest, but that the Prophet ﷺ would have had mercy even for Satan. So for him to be just, that was removed. So he was so merciful, he would have even had mercy for shaitan, which is a completely different meaning than the shaitan whispering to us. So there are multiple ways of explaining that honor the great status of the Prophet ﷺ. And as I said, it happened multiple times, at least 3 times. When he was a child, when he first received the revelation, and the night of the Isra and Ma'raj. And there are other lesser strength narrations that will take the number up to 5 or 6, I've even read before. So this is something that happened multiple times in his life, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If I carry an ink pen that has a gold clip on it, is that okay for me as a male Muslim to carry? I don't know if a gold clip on a pen is considered jewelry, forbidden for Muslim men. The problem with gold and silver is that gold and silver are the 2 substances that are used for the currency in Islam, the dinar and the dirham. So all of the madhahib agree that you cannot use utensils and vessels made out of gold and silver. So we cannot drink from a golden cup, eat from a silver plate, etc. However, if the item is plated, gold plated, silver plated, we don't allow it. The Shafi'is don't allow it, but the Hanafis allow it. And in our books, it says, if you are struck with an issue like this, as is common today, this was written like a couple hundred years ago, so follow the opinion that allows it, meaning the Hanafi opinion. So the pen clip is gold. It's obviously not a solid piece of gold. You're not that rich. It's obviously not. You probably was gifted, so it's probably gold plated. Then that would be okay. But if it was a solid piece, if it was a solid gold pen, that would not be permissible, even according to the Hanafis. So gold plated, silver plated, as long as it is extra or an adornment, or the item is studded by gold and silver, in the Hanafi madhab, that's okay. In the other madhabs, it's not. So there is some space in that. So the person who has the gold, it's not considered jewelry. The pen is considered a tool. So my guess, without seeing the pen, is most likely I would, if I was going to bet, it's probably gold plated, because if it was solid gold, I mean, that would be ridiculous. So on and so forth. So when it comes to gold and silver, the Sharia has a lot to say, because gold and silver is what we use for currency, as I said. So what if the pen or the cup, what if the cup was made out of emeralds? What if we had an emerald cup and a dish made out of platinum? It's fine, even though the cost of that is many, many more fold than the gold and silver. So it's not about gold and silver because it's showing off or it's fancy or something like that. It's because it's related to that gold and silver are the materials used for currency. Now we live in a non-gold and silver currency age, but that's recent, only from the 1970s. And there are people now, countries that are calling for gold reserve. I mean, I'm not an expert in currency or policy or anything like that, but the chances of that happening soon are very, very unlikely. I mean, the reserve currency right now is the US dollar. But still, if there is something that is haram in the Sharia, and the reason why it's haram has gone, like in this case, we still avoid it, because there could be another reason in the Sharia that Allah has intended that we do not see. So even though someone can come and say, well, we don't use gold and silver for currency, so all of these rules about the utensils and the vessels, we can cast them aside. We say, no, if Allah Ta'ala told us to remove something, then there could be, even if it's just out of compliance and worship, we do it. Okay. If I make a mistake during the prayer, what is the proper way to make sajdatul sahw? That after you sit and you finish the tahiyyat, before you do salam, you do Allahu Akbar twice. To do 2 sujood, you come up, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Is it permissible to say the salah, non-fard nawafil, as a means of seeking blessings for someone who has passed away, or is it recommended to stick to things like sadaqah jariyah and dua? Yani, like I said before, the prayer itself cannot be done on behalf of somebody else, but you can make dua in the prayer for the person, so you can do that. So don't be binary, but Allah Ta'ala says, Inna salata kanat ala al-mu'minina kitaban mawquta. The prayer has been prescribed for each believer in its allotted time. So we can't do it on behalf of each other. And that's how important prayer is, by the way, that there is never a circumstance in which you don't pray. Even in the thick of battle, you have to pray. What if like you're actually in the trenches in battle? How do you pray Salat al-Duhr? You say, Allahu Akbar, Subhanallah. That's Salat al-Duhr. That's it. That's all you have to say. And you don't even have to make it up. That's how important the prayer is. What if you're stark naked in a cave and you don't know which way the Qibla is or the time? You still have to pray. You have to make your best effort to pray. Some of the madhahib will say, pray once this way, once this way, once this way, and once this way, for example. So there's no circumstance in which you can even pray with your eyes if you're lying down and you're sick, and that's how important the salah is, by the way. Okay, the next question is like 4 paragraphs. I think I might summarize. Guidance on who to name as a guardian for my children. Part of the estate planning process for parents of minors includes naming a guardian for the children in the event that both parents die. Is there anything from the Quran or Sunnah that would provide guidance on the best person to name? Context, generally speaking, most advice comes in the form of capable, God-fearing Muslims For most families, the default tends to be the parents or siblings. In my family's case, both my wife and I have equally capable and willing Muslim parents that we want to name respectively. Of course, for example, we cannot name both of our respective mothers as the primary guardians of our children. I think the real reason behind this question is whoever wrote it is afraid of the in-laws side, and they're trying to be very political. And that's why I insisted that these questions be anonymous, because I enjoy trying to understand the psychology behind it. So first it was God-fearing guardians, but now it specifically says mothers. Of course, we cannot name both our respective mothers. So there's a mother-in-law issue here. Is there any advice that can be given on the Quran and Sunnah examples that help my family think through this process to determine an order of preference? Inshallah, the ultimate care of our children is in Allah's hands. However, I want to do my best, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so when it comes to the estate planning thing, there are other factors. I mean, of course, you need somebody who you think is going to take care of your parents. As a matter of fact, Imam al-Ghazali, his father, who died when Imam al-Ghazali and his brother Ahmed were young, the guardian was a pious neighbor. And it was the pious neighbor who took Muhammad and Abu Hamid al-Ghazali and Ahmed, the brother, the younger brother, or the other brother, to the madrasa. And had it not been for that, we wouldn't have had Imam al-Ghazali. So you want somebody who's going to be able to overall make sure that they tend to your children's fundamental well-being. That's important. At the same time, you need somebody who's physically capable. Somebody who's here, somebody who understands the language of the laws, or somebody who's financially able to understand how to use the estate that's been left. There has to be a little bit of literacy for that person. So it's not necessarily the parents, because it might be a burden for the parents, but maybe your parents are aging. So it all depends. It doesn't have to be a relative. It could be somebody in the community that you trust, that you come to an arrangement with. So it's really too subjective for me to give a specific answer, other than to say you have to have these two combinations. You have to have somebody that understands that they owe these children, depending of course on what age the children are, the fundamental care to guide them the right way, on the most deepest way that is compatible with our faith tradition. That's number one. At the same time, they need to be able to help them continue their life, their lifestyle, their schooling, and things like that. So you need somebody that has that combination. That's how I would answer that question. And this is difficult because I and my wife and I, we went through this a few years ago, and it was actually very difficult to find the right person that we thought kind of ticked all those boxes. So I speak from a little bit of experience. So if you're a guardian of a non-Muslim, same thing. Your job is to make sure that child, that you follow as best as you can their parents' instructions for care of that child. Because the issue of faith is an issue that we have no control over. لا تهدي من أحببت ولكن الله يهدي من يشاء والله يهدي من يشاء. Allah is the one that guides. We can't choose who is guided. Sheikh al-Islam Mustafa Sabri, who was the last Sheikh al-Islam of the Ottoman Empire, he had a similar question that came to him. And the question that came to him was, as a young slave boy who is non-Muslim, is it better that non-Muslim slave boy be freed or sold into a Muslim family? And Shaykh al-Islam Mustafa Sabri, he said, it's better that the slave boy be freed, because the opportunity to earn your freedom will only come once in your life. It's very rare. But the opportunity to find Allah's door is always open. So based on that line of thinking, that's how you should think about this situation. Okay, another witr question, subhanAllah. I usually leave the 3 witrs in my asha. Oh no, this is a repeat. This is a repeat. Alhamdulillah. Okay. Sometimes Sometimes I come just in time for Jummah prayers and the mosque is crowded and there is space outside, but in front of the Imam, is my prayer accepted? Yes, because in that regard, we follow the position of Imam Malik, and Imam Malik radiallahu anhu did not stipulate that the Imam be the first person in the prayer lines. It's not a condition, where in the other madhab, of course it is. So in our mosque, out of necessity, we follow Imam Malik's position because we have no other choice. So that's fine. But so not only is your prayer valid, inshallah, but the prayer of the Imam and everybody else. What is the minimum distance between the mosque and a prayer space that is at a distance from one's prayer to be accepted if there's a space in between? So if we are in one mosque, in the same building, in the same mosque, let's say this masjid is huge, like a huge masjid. If you are inside the mosque and you can hear and follow the movements of the Imam, that's fine. So that's one scenario. The other scenario is like in our mosque, we have all of the rows, they go back, and that's the border, that's the wall of the mosque. And now there's a gap outside. There are other people praying outside of the mosque. What is the distance allowed between the last row of the continuous rows, and the people outside? 144 meters, or 472 feet. That's the maximum amount of distance. And I measured before the distance between the door here and the barn, and it's less. So if we had an Imam praying at the barn or in the blacktop for Eid prayer, and well, this actually happens. So we pray Eid prayer on the basketball court, all the way to the end of the basketball court, and then the next group, sometimes there are people praying here. So the people praying here can still be part of the same Jama'ah there because we are less than that space, less than that amount. So that's quite, 472 feet is far. If you count it out, it's far. During COVID, we did not stand shoulder to shoulder. Now that COVID distancing is relaxed, is it okay for me to still stand apart from the next person, exercising an abundance of caution? I mean, you could do that, but then you would really need to pray like at the last row or something. But you can't, I mean, don't come in the front and then kick everyone off beside you. That's not going to work. So if you want to be very cautious, and you know there are still people wearing masks, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with any of that. You have to do that on your own. So you can pray, like I said, you'll have to pray by yourself or create your own row or off to the side or in the basement. That's fine, because the standing shoulder to shoulder is not a condition in all of the madhahib. It's definitely, there's a hadith about, several hadith about it, so it's good form, but some of the madhahib did not interpret that hadith as being a condition. Some of them just interpret it as being a sunnah. Whereas obviously the majority of us say, no, that's how you pray. So when COVID came, we adopted, all of us around there adopted that position that said it's okay, for obvious reasons, because we had to. So you could continue to do that out of abundance of caution, but I fear that would lead you to this thing of wiswas, because then where does it stop? You don't want to shake people's hands, you don't want to touch the doorknob, then some people don't even want to go to the mosque because they're still scared. So there has to be a little bit of tawakkul, but on this specific issue, it's okay if you do it, as I said, sort of by yourself. Women pray behind the men in our mosque. Can men and women pray in the same line if there is an aisle separating the men and women? Yeah, so if we had like a gap down the middle of the mosque, and then the men prayed on one side and the women prayed on the other side, but like maybe like one line back, yeah, that could work. That's fine, because in all of these large masajid, it's not always that the men are in front and the women are in the back. It's just the men and women are separate, but the women can't be in front of the men. There is a way to do that. Yeah, that's doable. Just because it's doable doesn't mean we're going to do it, by the way. I'm just answering the question. So we have a system here, it works, and we're going to stay with that system. So not just because something is doable means we have to implement it. At some fundraisers, not in our mosque, they mention the names of those who contribute. Well, we mentioned the people that contribute when we know it. Does this take away from the blessing that is bestowed on the donor? No, not at all, because we do that so that we can encourage one another. So when you see little kids and a kid saved up all year and donates to the mosque, we want to honor that child. We want the child to know how much we honor that, and then that child donates, motivates other children, other young people to donate. I remember the first fundraiser we had, it was online during COVID, that first Ramadan. There were so many children donating because everyone just got so excited seeing all the other kids donating. So sometimes you name the person to encourage them. So that's wrong. And then the person who is donating, if their name is mentioned, it's on them for them not to be arrogant or to be, that's on them. That's their own little struggle. But sometimes we do that, and we should, especially the people that are the large donors, so that we know that these are the people that sustain the mosque. And let me tell you something else from my side of the table. Throughout the year, people come and they criticize me, they criticize the mosque. And let me tell you something, 100% of the people that criticize, these are not the people that donate. So from my point of view, because I know who donates, sometimes we're told, and the person wants to remain anonymous. Sometimes I don't know. I just take the piece of paper and I give it to Rifai and I said, this person donated. But I do know more of the names than maybe you do. And I'm telling you, the people that complain and this is haram and that these people never donate. These are not the people that upon which the mosque is built. And that's why it's important that you know who are the families, who are the people that are really sacrificing, why this place exists. Not just this place, but any place. That's very important because that will give you a clear picture of what the community is actually like. I'm not trying to be disparaging with the people that criticize. I'm full of mistakes and I take the criticism honestly. Every time somebody criticizes, I take it seriously. I try to see in my heart if there's anything there, so on and so forth. Alhamdulillah, most of the criticism is just nonsense and just people making noise and ignorance and things like that. But I don't take that lightly, but I'm giving you a snapshot. A lot of the people that are the big donors, they are not the people that come every day to the mosque and pray every Jummah in the mosque because they're out working and they have very active lives, but yet they donate. So when we come to fundraise at this mosque or any mosque, and then you realize that, this person who you think you only see once a year at Eid or twice a year at the two Eids, but they've donated every year $50,000, $75,000, that's going to make you think like, what am I doing for the mosque? Right? So it's important. So don't take it like that. What does qard Hassan mean in fundraising? A non-interest bearing loan. So I'm going to give the mosque $100,000. I'm giving this as an example. I'm not going to give the mosque because I don't have $100,000 to give. But I'm going to give the mosque $100,000 qard Hassan, which means that the mosque promises to pay me back at some point, hopefully in the not too distant future, the $100,000 back. So it's a loan to help facilitate the finance of things. And it's a good tool. We haven't done a lot of it at this mosque, or maybe we have, but not publicly. But it's a great tool because it's a way that people can give, and that they know that they'll be able to take that money back if they need it. But sometimes there are moments in the operation where you just need a gush of finance. Okay, do I have to pay zakah on my jewelry and on cash deposits in the bank, which is not interest bearing? If you're a woman and you have jewelry, in the Shafi'i madhab, you don't have to pay zakah on the jewelry. No matter how much jewelry you have, whether you wear it or you don't, as long as it's jewelry. Of course, on the Hanafis, you have to. So obviously the person who's asking this question is from a Hanafi background, 100%. Because in the Shafi'i madhab, we know this. If you're a man and you have jewelry, even if it's haram jewelry, you have to pay zakah on it because it's not permissible for you to have the jewelry. As far as cash deposit in the bank, this is textbook zakah. It's money that's in a drawer that's just sitting there. If the money is above the nisab, which is the dollar equivalent of 84 grams of 21 karat gold, where did we get 21 karat gold from versus 16 karat or 18 karat? Because the dinars, the gold dinars that were at the time of the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba, the Roman dinars, they are 21 karat gold. So that is what we base the fiqh of the zakah on. What was I saying? Oh, the cash. So if you have above the nisab amount, I think the nisab amount maybe is like $5,500, $6,000, around that right now. I'd have to double check. If you have that and it's just sitting in a bank account, whether it's getting interest or it's not getting interest, and it stayed in that account for a whole year, you got to pay 2.5% on that. That's textbook. Zakah. Do Christians and Jews believe in life after death? Yes, they have eschatology of differing views. Some of them is very compatible to us. Some of them is different. But yes, they believe in the afterlife, because like us, they believe in moral responsibility, that you live in this life, you're morally responsible, and you will be judged for that. The people that don't believe in that version of the afterlife are the dharmic faiths, in which there's just reincarnation, because then there's no Yawm al-Qiyamah. That's why Yawm al-Qiyamah is a fundamental part of our belief. But the Jews and Christians, we all, and us, and the Zoroastrians, we share that. Can you briefly explain how the motions of those in the Jewish faith pray, as I have seen them standing and bowing? We can talk about that another time, because they rock back and forth. They face east and they rock back and forth. But I'm not a rabbi, so we can ask the rabbi to come and explain that to us. It's only a limit of how much One time, Sheikh Muhammad Abdu, a woman came up to him and she gave him, read this. And he looked at it, he's like, but this is in French. And he's like, this is in French. And she said to him, well, why are you wearing the imma? Why are you wearing the turban? He said, why don't you take my imma and then you read it? So I feel like this is this question. I don't know how the Jews pray. And there are all these different denominations and so on and so forth. Okay. Can we see the body after ghusl? This seems to be an issue, because this also came up recently in the winter break. So there is dispensation for that. You know, Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he kissed the forehead of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam after he was washed, after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had passed. But this thing about after the body's washed and shrouded and then we bring him to the mosque, we had one family, we were like going out to the hearse, and then they're like, wait, and then they opened the body, and then they're like FaceTiming their family. And I wouldn't do that. I'm not going to say it's haram, but I wouldn't do that. Just get the person in the ground. Again, don't take it the wrong way. That's very selfish on the living, because it's the living person who has the need to do that. When the person dies, we need to be thinking about the person who died. What do we need to do for them? We need to get them to their home. That's what we need to do. So, if I'm dead and my wife is crying and she wants to see okay, it's not the end of the world. It's not haram, but we shouldn't make a thing at it. The taking the picture of, don't take my picture when I'm dead. Just, I'm dead. Khalas, it's over. Put me in the ground and pray for me, inshallah. Okay. The last series of questions are all related to women-related issues. So let me take those, and then we can turn to, if there's still time left, we can answer other questions. Okay, so the sister says, I do my wudu following all the steps, including washing both of my feet. And then I understand that wudu remains until one or more of the following happens. Anything that is a natural discharge. This refers to urine, stool, or passing of gas, falling asleep, becoming unconscious. Okay, that's good. My question is, do we need to wash our feet 3 times again if we walk with our socks on in the carpeted floor, or wear socks and sandals on the wooden tiled floor in the house? If you make wudu and you wash your feet, and then you put on a pair of socks, and the socks cover your feet, your toes, your feet, and go above your ankle, think about it that the sock is now your foot. It's a part of your foot. If you make wudu at 8 in the morning, and then you put on socks, and then you walk around the house, and then you take off your socks at 9 in the morning, but you haven't lost your wudu, then the issue is moot, because it doesn't matter, because you put them on and you took them off while you had wudu. If you make wudu at 8 in the morning and you put on a pair of socks, and then you lose your wudu at 8:30 and the socks are on you, you can do one of 2 things. Either when you come and make a new wudu, you wipe over the sock, or you take them off and wash your feet again. What you can't do is you can't make wudu at 8 in the morning, lose your wudu at 8:30, make wudu at 8 in the morning, put on a pair of socks, lose your wudu at 8:30, take off your socks, and then put them back on, and then make wudu and wipe over your sock. You can't do that. So if you make wudu and put on your sock and lose your wudu, you have to keep the sock on you for you to be able to wipe over it. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay? So I hope that answers that. How long should the wudu remain for praying namaz and reading the Quran? As long as you can hold it. As long as you can hold it. So if you make wudu, you know, Imam Abu Hanifa radiallahu anhu, he used to pray Fajr with his wudu of Isha. Yeah, oh God, right. Because in Ramadan, when we're up all night, I mean, I make wudu like 15, 20 times. I don't know how he did it, because it's impossible. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's impossible. How do you do that? But subhanAllah, that's one of the most baffling things for me, because I've tried. I was like, okay, tonight in Ramadan, I'm gonna do it Abu Hanifa style. You don't make, by the time you finish Taraweeh and you go home, you got to use the bathroom. So no, if you can hold it, then you're fine. Even if it's 2 days, let's say you don't sleep for 48 hours and you have the same wudu, that's fine. It doesn't expire. But if you wipe over your socks, you have 24 hours from the time you lose your wudu. So let's say I make wudu at 6 in the morning, I wash my feet, then I put on my pair of socks, I pray Salatul Fajr, and then I lose my wudu at 10 in the morning while I'm wearing my socks. I have from 10 in the morning till the next day, 10 in the morning, that 24-hour period to wipe over my socks. If I was traveling in that same scenario, I would have 3 days. You could keep your socks on for 3 days and wipe over them. Maybe that's what the questioner is after. If we forget to recite the shahada and dua, will our wudu not be completed? No, the du'as that you make for wudu are all sunnah. You don't have to make them, so that's fine. Or only if we recite the shahada, which I did not know until now and didn't know about reciting. Does this mean our prayers are not acceptable? Maybe it's about the prayer. In the salah, in the prayer, you have to say the shahada at the last rak'ah. Okay? So the minimum is ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Sayyidina Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Yeah, that's a sunnah. So to say the basmala or a'udhu billahi minash shaitan rajim, bismillahir rahmanir rahim, that's before the wudu, it's good, but it's a sunnah. If you don't do it, is your wudu valid? It's still valid, as long as you've washed the minimal parts. Yeah. So it's just a sunnah. It doesn't have to happen. So you're fine. Okay, so that's what the question is meaning. Okay, no, you're fine. Okay, if someone has acid gas problems and wudu breaks during the prayer many times, what should he or she do? If it's chronic, in the Sharia, it's called salis al-bawl. And in that case, the person just makes wudu before they're going to pray, and then they pray no matter what happens during the prayer. That is excused if it's something that is continuous. That's fine. Or somebody who has like a bag, like a urine bag. It's just a form of incontinence. So the Sharia is very simple about that. Just make wudu before you're going to go pray, and then whatever happens, happens. So you kind of excuse all of those things. Finally, it's actually not finally, because there's another question, but if a woman wear perfume in public where men are, is this sinful? What's sinful is that the woman, the thing about women and smell and makeup and all of these type of things, okay? The thing about that is the overarching package. That's what people don't understand about those hadith. It's not saying that the woman's got to smell nasty. That's not what the hadith means. Because if a woman smells nasty, she will have the same effect on that group of men as if she smells very good, which is she's drawing attention to herself. But just in the opposite, one is positive, one is negative. That's what people don't understand. So the hadith about women smelling, wearing perfume and going out, it's about, taking a shower in your perfume so that, 10 minutes before you walk in the room, we smell you. So then you're like, what's that? And then you see the sister comes in and, you know, she's wearing 15-inch heels and all these. So it's like you're drawing attention. That it's the package. It's not about. So there are ways that women can put scent that you don't smell it, but that just she doesn't smell bad. I mean, I'm not a woman, obviously, but I know from the women in my family that there are ways that they do it that's fine. So it's about the package. It's about the overarching scene, public scene. And we have to remember that. The Prophet ﷺ was trying to remind us about the importance of us, you know, lowering our gaze and being conservative and being modest and respecting everyone's privacy, so on and so forth. That doesn't mean that we can't interact with one another. We have to interact with one another because that's life. But it's just how we do it. It's the how. That's what matters. There are many opinions about women can't go in public, such as they can't go in front of men after doing wudu as it will break. And we have to do wudu again, can't wear perfume, etc. Again, what I was saying, I think one companion said something in the presence of Sayyidah Aisha alayhi salam about a woman walking in front of a man, breaks his wudu, like an animal or like a dog that walks in. And she said, are you comparing us to dogs now? Right? So, you know, this is the wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No, as I said in the Shifa class last week, our job as men is to honor and pamper our women. The Prophet, that's what he did. That's the Sunnah. That's the Sunnah. He was gentle with women. He loved women. He had multiple wives. He had daughters. All of Ahl al-Bayt come from his daughter, from the lineage of his daughter, Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam. The Prophet ﷺ respected women. He said, "Rifqan bil qawarir," you know, be gentle with those who are gentle, meaning women. "Khayrukum khayrukum li ahli wa ana khayrukum li ahli." The best of you, look at this, the best of you are those who are best to their women, and I am the best of you to my women. So he put the measure of a man and the measure of worth of who treats their women the best. So that means that we have to go out of our way to make sure our women are comfortable and happy and so on and so forth. So this idea that the woman's a piece of trash and she's a piece of fitna and she can't go anywhere, that's not Islam. I don't know where that came from. That's somebody's warped interpretation. And that creates a lot of problems because it creates a lot of tension in families. It creates this, you know, misogynistic thing. It creates this patriarchal thing. So on and so forth. So we want to revive the Sunnah on this issue more than anything because it's very important, because it is our women who, you know, will have children, raise children, and it's investing in them is investing in the next generation, so on and so forth. The Prophet ﷺ was not lewd, he was not harsh, he was not mean, he was not crude, he, you know, somebody finds that when they close their eyes, it helps them, that's okay. But when you Allahu Akbar and you pray, you generally just look in the place where you're going to make sujood, and that should help you with the concentration.
Shias, they give sajda for that.
What?
Sajda, that clay, Shia.
Yeah, the Shia.
They say that's sajda.
Yeah, well, the Shias, they pray on that because for them, a condition of the prayer in the Jafari madhab is that your sujood has to be on earth, not something that is manufactured like a rug, which is so ironic because all the beautiful rugs are Persian. So if they prayed outside, they wouldn't pray on that because the earth is natural. Sometimes in the janamaz that they have, there'll just be these rows of clay. So the Mughal, I think they call it. They have a name for it. The Persian, I can't remember the Persian name. So this is the circular clay is just the common way. They'll have like a basket of it when you walk into the mosque, and they'll make them from Karbala. Yeah, but the idea. Yeah, but the idea is that for them, the condition of their prayer is that it has to be sujood, has to be on earth. For us, for the Sunni schools, that's a sunnah, not an obligatory part. So we can pray here, that's fine. That's where it comes from. Tissue, because it's not meant, yeah. So I'll tell you what we can do. If we have Shias that can come, there's a something that we can do that hits both Sunnis and Shias together, is that if you have like a straw janamaz, yeah, because then that's earth. And then for us, so if you go to mosques in North Africa, from Libya all the way to Mauritania, most of the mosques, that's what's inside. They don't have rugs, or they'll have the rug and on top of it will be the straw mat, like in Qarawiyyin in Fez. I mean, it's just all these straw mats. So we can have them here. It's a sunnah for us, and that's how we can respect them as well. And I wouldn't, because if somebody comes in and sees them, they're going to think that this is a Shia mosque. So it has a symbol thing that I wouldn't do. Yeah. But we can have a janamaz that's made out of that's straw. Straw mat, that's fine. That's okay. Are there any other questions online? Okay. والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى اللهم على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل أفضل صلاة على أسعد مخلوقاتك سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم عدد معلوماتك ومداد كلماتك كلما ذكرك الذاكرون وغفل عن ذكره الغافلون.